So hello and welcome back to another episode of Weekly Web Dev. We usually do it on Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Today we are doing at 11, so sorry for the delay. But anyways, it's a very exciting day today because today we have two things to discuss. Number one, we got a new webcam finally. So the old webcam we had was 720p and it was really the cheapest one we could find on the market. But we thought that we'll first buy that, create at least 10 videos with that, just to make sure that we are not just buying something and we'll never use it later. So we thought we'll buy the cheapest one first, prove the concept that we love making videos, we love doing what we do, and then we'll invest into a better one. So this is at least 1080. It's not like $500, but it is a good, much better webcam. I still have to set it up properly, so I might be looking too big or too small in this video, but we'll improve that as well. Anyways, what we want to discuss today is how to use console.log as a pro. Now, most of you know what console.log is. Most of you know what logging is, but many of you might not know the great things that you can do with console.log. For example, if I show you my screen, do you know how to do this? Can you do this? Do you know how to write a colored console log? Now, this might not look like the most efficient way or the best way to use a log, but believe me, there are so many more things that we'll discuss today. I'll discuss with you what are the most common console.log methods because there are different log levels. There's a log, there's info, there's debug, there's warning, then there's an error, obviously, which you usually see in websites. Then you can style your logs, as I showed you in a quick example right now. Then you can do assertions. Now, assertions are usually done when we are testing something. So let's say you have a scenario where you want to test if number is even or not. And if it's not an even number, you want to throw an error. You can do that with console.assert. You can also run timers, which is really awesome. So you can actually time your code. You can do console.time start, time end, and we'll discuss more. We'll discuss the details later when actually showing an example. Then you can clear the console. That's pretty simple. But you can also create timers. You can also create counters. Sorry, you can also create counters with console, which is again really awesome, especially when you want to see how many times your function actually ran. So you don't really have to create a variable, increment that, and then print it in the end. You can simply do console.count to do all of that for you. In the end, we'll also see how to create tables. Now, tables are really great, and I was blown away when I came to know how we can create tables with console statements with JavaScript in browsers, and we'll discuss that. I'll show you how to do that as well. Then we have groups. So we can also create groups of console log. So maybe you have 10 console log statements that are, let's say, here, and the other 10 start from here. So basically, they're intended. They're actually like groups of console logs, chunks of console logs, and they're all separated. I think that's cool as well. What else? You can check the memory size, the heap size of your browser. That's a little advanced, but maybe you are a senior developer, advanced developer, and you would be interested into that. And I think that's pretty much it. But these are all cool console.log tricks that 90% of developers don't know or never use. So I'll show you all of them today. Let's get right into it. So the first one you can see over here, it's pretty simple. Here, what we are doing is we can actually style our logs. Now, this is not the most useful one, but it definitely is a cool one. So all you need to do is you need to start your console.log like this, add a %C sign, and then add a second argument, so basically a comma, and you can add your style simply like in a CSS, in a CSS file. Obviously .css file or in browser, but you can basically add styles like this, like color white, background color orange. Maybe you want this to be red and the fancy message is printed in red, which is really awesome in my opinion. The other thing you can do is, and just so you know, all the credit goes to Margot for writing this article, because this is where I came to know about a few tips and tricks that I didn't know before. So I was already using, I would say, 70% of them, but the 30% I did not know, like how to create a table, how to do a counter. It really blew my mind, and it's really awesome. So thanks to Marco, but I'll show you all of them in this live tutorial. So this one was pretty simple. Basically adding a style, not very useful, but yeah, pretty cool. Now there are different levels of console logs. So we can do console.log, which is pretty typical, pretty basic. So I can write test. Sorry for the typo, that should work. But I can write the same thing, but in different log levels. So I can write assert. Assert actually will go into this later, but I can write info, which is pretty, it is exactly the same result as .log. Then we have debug. Info, the I is small, so I'll correct that. So as you can see here, it's all pretty straightforward. But then the other two are very interesting. The first one is warn. And then we have console.error, which should actually print an error in our console. So as you can see, it prints an error. Now, warn was not printed. And I'm wondering why. Like, as you see, when I ran console.warn test, the error ran fine. We see the red line. So the error was printed fine. But warning was not printed for some reason. So if I try that again, without a typo, obviously, you would see that it's not printed. Now, there's a reason behind it. And the reason is, I'll actually remove myself so that you can see the screen a little better. Now, the reason behind this is we have custom levels of log, and I have disabled warnings. And now this is disabled in your browser most likely by default. Now you can turn this on and then you'll see the warnings actually printed. Now, as I said, it was a little different than actual error because error is printed in red, warnings are in yellow. So these are different console log levels which you can use to log different kind of things in your browser, maybe, and it might help you in testing a lot. So that is thing number two. So we have learned how to add styles. We have learned what are different levels of logs, but it does not end there. We have a lot of cool things that we can still do. For example, we can do assertions. Now console.assert. If you just run this, nothing really happens. But it is supposed to accept a Boolean condition in the first parameter, and the second you can maybe add some other parameters, but we'll go into that later. We'll go step by step. In case you guys were missing me, I'll come back into the stream. Now, what we can do is, let's create a variable. I'll say const number, because of lack of imagination, is equal to 3. Now, I can do number %2 equals 0. So basically, I'm checking if the number is even or not, right? That's the only thing I'm checking. If is the number an even number or an odd number? Let's see what happens when I press on enter. I get an error. It says assertion failed. But if my number was, let's say 4, so 4% 2 is 0 because 4 is an even number, obviously. It says number has already been declared. So for that, what I'll do is I'll rerun this page because I'm just redeclaring the same variable and it kind of makes sense, although it's a little dumb, but yeah, I understand what's happening over here. So this time I'll use let so that I can reassign values to this number, obviously. So now there's no error. It is literally undefined. Nothing was printed. But if I do this again, but assign my number a value of 5, I get an error that assertion failed. Now, if you have multiple assertions in your code and you want to differentiate between one and the other, what you can do is you can actually add an error message. So what I'll do right now is I'll say in an object in the second argument, I can pass error msg. I can say it's not an even number with some exclamation points. Then I get a proper error message. I get it's an even number in my error message. So if you're not able to see it, I'll zoom in for you guys. So hopefully you can see it now. So as you can see, assertion really might help you in your code block when you have a lot of things to test and you don't have time maybe to write unit test, although writing unit test is the best way. I totally agree with that. But when you just want to see something quickly in your browser, this might be a great way and an easy way and a quick way for you to test things. Now, the next thing is console.clear. This one is pretty basic, but I'll still cover it for 5% of you who don't know this because this is going to change your life. So as you know, we click this button to clear the console to remove everything. You can do console.clear. And this would simply, it was a typo, so take two, console.clear. And this would simply clear your console. Now, this is pretty useful when you have a lot of things in your console that you don't really want, and you can simply remove it like this. The next one is console.count. And really, this, again, thanks to Marco, console.count is something I did not know of before, and it is really amazing. I'll show you why. I can write console.count, it prints default 1. Okay, so it prints 1 when I write console.count. But if I write it again, what will it print? Will it print 1 or now will it start counting? Well, as the name suggests, it should start counting. So when I run the same thing again, it somehow saves in the memory where what our last counter was, the value of our counter was, and just increments it by 1. So if I run this again, it brings 2. If I run this again, it brings 3. Now, this is really awesome. This is really useful because when you have a for loop or a while loop and something is not working in your code, there's some error that you have in your code. Well, it can get really annoying because now you either should know how to debug code or you will create a variable, you will assign it a value of maybe 1 or 0, depending on your code structure. And then you will increment it by 1 every time you use it. And then in the end, what you'll do is you'll print it. And that's not really the best way because the best way is really to use the browser features, the JavaScript features that are available for you. So that is where console.count comes into the picture and it's really helpful. For example, if I say if I even remember how to write for loops without looking at Google, well, let's say I equals 0, I less than equal to, let's say 3, and then I plus plus. I can write console.count, and I would know how many times my function ran. It ran 4 times, but I did not want it to run 4 times. I just wanted to run 3 times. So there looks like there's a bug in my code. Well, I know that because it actually printed the count. Now, what I can do is if I just wanted it to be less than 3, not equal, I can spot that mistake very simple, like very easily. Now, this is obviously a very silly example, but if you have been using loops or any kind of repeating code, you would know how useful it can be and how it can be a lifesaver to you. So if I just remove this, it prints thrice. So now I know perfectly that my function is working fine, especially because of console.count. Now, obviously, if you have been using JavaScript for a long time, you would really appreciate this feature. The next one is groups of console. Now, this is also pretty interesting. I did use this before. I knew a little about what console.groups are, but just to show this to you, I can create a group like this. Then I can write login group 1. So let's copy that, create another group, and this would be login group 2. And then I can write console.group end. And because we created 2 groups, I'll end both of them. Now, what happens? Carefully see how this log is printed. And I think this is really cool and you would appreciate this. Because what's happening over here is we created 2 groups and both of them can be expanded like this. So you can really separate your console logs. So if you have 20 features running on a web page and you just want to print them differently, print them in groups so that you can concentrate on group 1. Let's say group 2 is not really our point of concern, so it won't pollute your log. you can just see the group one. And maybe if you are only interested in group two, well, then you can open this one as well. It is really awesome how you can group logs, and it would really help you while you're debugging your code in a much, much efficient manner. At least that's my opinion. Now, the next thing you can do is you can also check. Now, this is for more advanced programmers, but because I want to cater for everyone who's watching my channel, and that's why we can use console.memory. Now, what this will do is it will show you the heap size status of your browser. So in this case, it says JS heap size limit, total JS heap size, use JS heap size. Well, this is all fancy words. You don't really need to understand this, but you just need to know that this is a feature that you can use in console.log, and you don't need a fancy library for this. But the next one is something that I'm really, really, really excited about, and it's really awesome. And that is creating a table in console. Yes, you heard me right. You can actually create tables, and it really prints in a very user-friendly format. I'll show you how. Let's say we want to use this object, because as you can see, it is really an object with 3 keys and 3 values. I can literally convert this into a table. So I'll do console.table. I'll just pass this console.memory inside, and voila, it really created a table. The table has 3 rows, 2 columns, obviously because of the kind of object we had. And it has total JS heap size, UCL heap size, JS heap size limit, and then the value. Now, if you want a more user-friendly example, well, I'll present that to you as well, but you get the idea of what it does. Let me create a user for you. I'll create, let, what we can do, let user one, yeah, user one equals, this time we'll create more columns. So I'll write first name, then the last name. Okay. Now I'll create another user, which would be Kritika. Obviously, if you haven't checked her tutorials yet, they are really awesome. She's much better programmer than I am, and we both run this channel together. And what I'll do is I'll do console.table. I'll pass an array, because if you pass an array, it would be even better when you visualize it. So you will see user one, user two, and if I press enter, voila, you have an actual table, and it's really great because you have indexes, you have first name, last name in separate columns. And what else you need? It is the best representation that I found in console for any kind of data structure. It is so easy to understand, and it has all the cool features like sorting. Can you believe that? Now imagine if you have a website with thousands of products that you are selling, you can actually see those products in a table like this, and you can do sorting and all kind of stuffs with it. It is really cool, and it's really impressive. Like, I was blown away when I found we can do this with console logs. It is really awesome, really out of the ordinary. Let me know which one is your favorite. I'll tell you which one is my favorite till now, and you would have guessed it. My favorite is console.table. Let me know which one is your favorite, and I'll show that to other users as well. Now, if we go to the next one is really, really awesome, especially if you want to time some things. Maybe you want to track the performance of your code. You want to time how much time it takes maybe to loop around 1 million devices. Or maybe you want to just track how long does a user take to respond when you ask them a certain question. Well, for that, what you can do is you can use a timer. You can write console.time, start tracking time. Then you can do console.timeend. And then you need to pass the same key over here. So I'll pass the same key so that it knows, so that console and the browser knows that we are ending this time, because we can obviously start multiple timers. And if I now run this, you will see the tracking time was 0.0048 milliseconds. Obviously, there was no delay because it's really running one after the other, and it is really efficient. It doesn't take a lot of time. But what I can do is I can create another timer, and I can say user wait time. I'll use the same key just to end the timer, and this time I'll show an alert box. And this alert box will say, are you ready to sign up? Now this involves user interaction because user might take some milliseconds to a couple of seconds to read our message and click the OK button on the alert box. And that will be recorded in our timer. Now let's see how that's done in action. If I run this, you will see I see the pop-up over here. Are you ready to sign up? I'm taking some time just to show you. And when I click on OK, you will see the wait time was 6,790 milliseconds. And that's basically 6.5 seconds if we just round off. So it really tells you the time your code took to complete, to interact. And in this case, the user took about 6 to 7 seconds just to interact, just to click on the OK button. And this might help you a lot in your logs, in your performance analysis, in your code performance, or just user interaction time. And all these things might give you a lot of insight into how your website is working, how efficient it is, and how you can do to improve any kind of thing in your platform. So that's really awesome, and that is really something that I use a lot, especially, and this is used in Node.js as well. Like most of these log features, you can use them not only in the browser, but in the console, in the Node.js log as well. But some things like tables or others might not be available in your browser, might not be available in your Node log system. It depends on what kind of system you're using. But really, all of these things are really awesome. Again, thanks to Marco for creating this amazing article. I learned a lot about console.logs, and now I can finally say that I use console.log as a pro. I use console features like a pro, and I hope you can say the same after watching this video. And if you have learned anything new and gained any insight on how to use some cool features in console, well, consider hitting this thumbs up button, hit the subscribe button to show your support. And until next time, I really enjoy my live streams, and let me know if you enjoy them as well. Bye bye. Until next time.